What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. So, I got a very curious comment recently about altering Pokemon types based on their specific locations and not the region at large. And that sounded like the very niche topic that could pique my interest, but also would never be tackled by anyone else in their right mind, so it's right up my alley. Basically, the premise of this is that sometimes there are Pokemon that can only be found in one spot in a region outside of their native home. So it stands to reason that if they're so restricted in their habitats, that maybe there would be something about it to suit them, namely that it could be a new regional form. So, for example, take the Coughing line. We know that in their home region they are poison types made out of pollution. However, we also know that they are capable of adapting, as we've seen the Galarian form of wheezing. However, in the Hoenn region, coughing is only found in one location, this being the Fiery Path, which does make sense because it does fit with all of the smoke pumping out of the volcano. But, seeing as how it is not on the route with the constantly falling soot, that seems to mean that there's something about the Fiery Path that would suit it better. So would that perhaps be the fire type? I know that Hoenn didn't have regional forms because it probably would have been too hard at the time, but I think we can assume that if it were on the table, then coughing might have seen a change. I would say they could probably stay poison and just have fire added on, which is still a narrow combination, only being on one other line we've ever seen. So if they had introduced this variation in Hoenn, things would have been vastly different, especially because they likely would have still had the Levitate ability, meaning that they would not be affected by their massive 4x weakness to ground. And the fact that it's pretty common amongst fan art as well to make these gas clusters part fire anyway, so it would all seem to fit. Plus, it would be pretty cool to see some of them in Flannery's gym. I'm not saying it would be her new ace, but seeing a wheezing pump out a heat wave from its spouts would be quite satisfying. I could also see a lava variant of Grimer, given that it's also found in the Fiery Path, but I don't think that makes quite as much sense as the volcanic ash version of our favorite smog machines. So where else has these more isolated Pokemon? Well, I don't think it would be any surprise to look over at the Alola region. They've already become famous for introducing the regional variant concept, but the truth is that they could have done much more. For this, I'm looking into the Abra line. The only place they can be found on this island chain is in Hau'oli City. In the city, there are these tiny patches of grass, which sets it apart from most other populated areas in Pokémon. So being found solely in the city, I would say Abra could have gained the Steel type. If a Pokemon exclusively lives in an urban environment, it would make sense to me for it to maybe adapt with some of its surroundings. This could be from any number of reasons, ranging from small amounts of metal in their diet, or maybe a high concentration of metallic objects interferes with their teleporting, causing them to take some of it with them each time and results in a metal coating around the Pokemon. Okay, so technically Abra is found on Route 2 as well to the north, but Alola also infamously implemented the practice of making Pokemon native to specific patches of grass. And when you view the breakdown, Abra is only found in the closest patches of grass just outside the city. So I don't think it's unreasonable to imagine that there would be a little overflow to the nearby route. Plus, having the added Steel type would make it far more protected against predators in the wild, letting it complete its excessive sleep in peace. Granted, that would make Alakazam far scarier than it is now, easily becoming more popular than the Steel-type variants they did give us, basically becoming the new Metagross of the Alola region. Plus, if it were a Steel-type, that could place even more emphasis on the spoons that they've been carrying around for decades. Everybody wins. I thought about maybe something with Meltan since it has a very interesting situation, but at the same time, if it were different in, say, the Let's Go games, that would have been the first time it would be in a standard Pokemon experience, so I guess we should get acquainted with it in its regular form first. However, one of the ones that I am most passionate about in this exercise is that of Medicham in the Sinnoh region. Now, I know that Sinnoh was only one generation after its debut, but the setup here is too perfect. While not in a specific location like some, it is regionally isolated to the northern part of the map, which of course in Sinnoh means it's basically a tundra, so I think that it would make sense for Medicham to be an ice type. I've always wondered why it's even up there with the likes of Sneasel or Snover, not to mention being on Candace's gym team. But if Medicham were an ice and fighting type, it would fit right in, while also being a great way to handle its fellow ice types where it can be found on Route 217 or Lake Acuity. And it's also found way up at the snow-capped top of Mount Coronet before you make your way to Spear Pillar, so it would be appropriate. Obviously, since Meditite can be found much earlier in more temperate climates, it will remain the same, but it can change upon evolution like some of the other forms that we've seen. However, Medicham can also be found in Victory Road, so you might say that it wouldn't fit as well, but I could see it still being an ice type living deep within a cool cave. So it might not be necessary, but it would have been really great for Medicham's PR to have a frosty variant so long ago. There are some other options that you can do, such as the Hoppip line from Gen 6. The only place across any 3DS mainline Pokemon game you can even find a Hoppip is in Kalos on Route 7. This is not only a brilliant route for its daycare and battle chateau, not to mention a perfect soundtrack, but it is also filled with colorful flowers. These are in fact where the encounters of wild Pokemon happen, but since Hoppip is already a grass type, what would change? Well, I would say the fairy type would probably fit best. We can give it differing blooms if you like, and it could connect them to the Flabebe line that can also be found here as well. If we really want to keep the flying aspect of it, we could give them the Levitate ability, but honestly being immune to ground isn't the biggest deal here anyway. But seeing as how these cottonweed Pokemon are so rare on the 3DS, I think a little shakeup would be in order. Another good option would probably be from the Unova region, since it was highly limited on previously established Pokemon in Black and White. I'm specifically looking at Route 12, where they brought in past Pokemon to the region for the first time, and here I think Dunsparce would be the best candidate. Not only is it the least likely to encounter here, but given its proximity to the Opelucid Gym just across the village bridge, I think the Dragon type would have worked. Maybe it could have even been the first older Pokemon that we saw in the gym itself, giving us a whole new appreciation for what older Pokemon could mean in this strange new land. Plus, it's what everybody's always wanted for this guy, so it would be a big help for this little chubby snake. Although I would also find it acceptable to become a ground type, since it is closer to the giant chasm as well, but since it's not found in there, I do think Dragon would be the best bet. I could see some others, like maybe the Luxio line, since they are only found on Route 8 in Alola through the Island Scan. It could change them to a grass type or something, but then they probably would have made it more prominent like all of the other Alolan forms in that case. But finally, I believe that one of the best possible options in all of Pokemon would have been in the Crown Tundra, and no, I don't just mean different Reggies. The second wave of Galar DLC was notable for many reasons, but one of the most important to me was the fact that for the first time ever, we could see fossil Pokemon in the wild. Obviously, this was a huge shakeup from the way we normally see them, since up to this point, we've only ever been able to get these Pokemon by resurrecting them from fossils that were made long ago. Yet somehow, there was something about the climate of the Crown Tundra that has allowed them to survive. I'm not sure what it is specifically, perhaps the unique combination of freezing colds that then seem to meet the much warmer area of the giant tree. Such a clash of environments could conceivably result in a distinctive atmosphere that would be able to sustain the creatures all these years later after the rest of them had died out. Maybe that giant tree even has some kind of mystical energy from being powered up by different legendary Pokemon. But the point is, this is the only place in the Pokemon world that we have seen these specimens still living to this day. And as cool as that is, I'm not sure it was the right call, at least not in the way that we've always seen them. It's been centuries since the rest of their species has gone extinct. So wouldn't it be likely that these Pokemon would have been a little different than their counterparts from so long ago? I mean, if you showed someone from 5,000 years ago a modern-day Chihuahua, they would not believe it was a dog. So I imagine that it would be plenty of time for a Pokemon to change a type or two. Now, I know that there are some people that have said these Pokemon have always been rock types, and that's why they're able to be preserved in fossils so well. And that seems to be supported by the fact that they are still rock types here in the Crown Tundra, but I am in the other camp of assuming the rock type was a result of imperfections in the resurrection process. So I would think it likely that if these Pokemon were around today, they would be quite different. I made a video about this topic a while back, but all of the fossil Pokemon have some pretty fitting alternatives that could replace their rock typing, such as the bug type being put on the Kabutops line, or a dragon-type Aerodactyl would be pretty scary swooping down to attack. The only fossil Pokemon that couldn't be found here are the Gen 4 ones, pretty obviously to leave them for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. But water-type versions of the Hoenn fossils would fit perfectly for the Pokemon and this area of the map. Not to mention the alternate takes that you could do with the amazing Gen 6 fossil pair that would be perfect fodder for almost any change you could think of. And, you know, the Gen 5 ones are here too. Maybe it's just me, but if there's a land that is different enough to let dinosaurs survive, they would be maintained in a form that is far different from the resurrected versions we typically see. So I am certain there are many more options like this of area-specific Pokemon across the regions, but those are just some of the standouts to me. So, which Pokemon do you think deserve regional forms based on their individual locations? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And we'll see you around next time!